Welcome to Boiler Ball postgame in the lounge. I'm Grant here with Dustin Schutte. And Dustin, Purdue with a huge win, 101-60, blew out Kent State. And Kent State's not a bad mid-major.
No, this is a team that they came in, they ranked sixth in points scored per game. They were averaging right around 95. They were a top 35 team in their field goal and 3-point percentage. They had a injury, a late scratch with Sion Medley out of the game. I think that kind of altered things a little bit there. But this was a game much like earlier this season, Grant, like they played with Oakland and Akron. This was a team that I thought could give them some trouble just because of their ability to score. Gillespie is the nation's top rebounder, and he's a really good inside player too. So I thought that he might give Purdue's big some trouble. But outside of the first 2 minutes, there was just no holiday rust. Like, this is a team that hadn't played a basketball game in 8 or 9 days, and you thought that this had potential to be one of those games where maybe it's a little bit of a sluggish start. And the way the game started, the first couple possessions, it looked a little ugly, but didn't take long for the Boilermakers to get things rolling. And Fletcher Lawyer tonight, I thought, kind of provided that spark, and that was a good sign from him after that 0-7 day against Auburn just 8 or 9 days ago.
Yeah, they looked really good the entire game. I thought they were really sharp on both ends of the court. Like, obviously the offense, you're going to see that a lot, getting triple digits and shooting well. But, Kent State's a team that averaged 94 points per game heading into this, and Purdue held them to like 30-some% from the field. At one point, it was like 32% and 19 from three, but that might have changed a little bit as the game went on. Still, it's like they just stopped Kent State from a lot of what they wanted to do. Like, Gillespie gets in foul trouble, but Safford, I thought, had the ability to cause some problems, and he didn't do much until late. So defensively, I thought especially it was a really good sign.
Yeah, this is and I thought I liked what Matt Painter said in the press conference after the game. I think earlier this season there were some concerns about this team defensively, and I think there probably still are. We'll see a little bit better competition in the coming weeks when Big Ten play resumes. But he basically said we had one bad half. Right? Like, everybody looks at the Iowa State game and hits the panic button, but he said we played good defense in the first half. We just had a letdown in the second half, plus we were turning the ball over. So, but I've been really impressed. This is now the fourth straight opponent they've held to 60 points or fewer. And in these last 4 games, they have an average margin of victory of 29.3 points per game, Grant, and 3 of those have been against Power 4 teams. Now, 2 of those weren't very good, right? But I still think that's an impressive mark, especially when you're going into Big Ten play. And again, I'm impressed that you're able to get 101 points. I know it's against Kent State and they were without one of the top players, but when you don't play basketball for 9 days, you just think that there's going to be a little bit of rest, kind of like you see in that first game. It takes the first 5 or 10 minutes before you can kind of get into a rhythm, but they really didn't miss a beat today. So yeah, I think that the big thing has been on the defensive end. The other thing, Purdue out-rebounded Kent State 40-28. This was another team that averaged 40 and a half rebounds per game. They were right on Purdue's level. Now, obviously, Gillespie getting into foul trouble, getting 2 fouls in the first half, going to the sideline early was a big deal for them. And then, obviously, when Purdue's shooting 60% for most of the game there until late, they don't they don't create a lot of opportunities, but only, 6 offensive rebounds. They only had 1 in the first half, just didn't allow any second chance opportunities. Purdue, just a well-rounded performance from basically start to finish tonight.
Yeah, and go back to like the circumstances of the game. Like, obviously it's been 9 days since that Auburn game. That Auburn game was a huge kind of stepping stone. They blew them out, and it kind of felt like that pinnacle of like, okay, we've kind of turned the corner from that Iowa State game. Then you go into the holidays and you get the 9-day break. You come in against Kent State, who's a mid-major opponent at home. Doesn't seem like a very big game. Yeah, I think this has the recipe of like a letdown type performance. You come in a little bit off the mark a little bit, but that never was the case. They jumped on them right away. Outside, like you said, maybe the first minute or two, they missed a couple shots and weren't like pulling away. But as soon as they got going, it was the floodgates open from the very start. And so, yeah, I think it was impressive that they were able to maintain that level of intensity. Let's talk a little bit about Jack Benter. 20 points, 7 of 7 from the field. And man, he just, toward the end there, he was pulling up from way beyond the 3-point arc, and they were pure every time.
It was basically just like he was daring the ball not to go in the hoop. Like it was the definition of a heat check. And yeah, I mean that kid is. I don't know if there's a player on this team, and they've got a lot of really good players and a lot of players who embrace their roles. But in terms of not knowing how many minutes he's going to get, I think Jack Bender's probably the one player on this team that doesn't know if he's going to play 20 minutes or 8 minutes. Like he probably feels pretty good about getting at least 8 minutes per game. But again, I always refer to Painter in the post game for some of these, but like he hits 2 threes in the first half and he gets 5 minutes and that's it. Right. He gets yanked out of the game because Trey Kaufman has to go back in because he's their best, best weapon on both ends of the floor. But he's now he was 4 of 4, 3 of 3 from deep in that win over Auburn. He's now hit his last 10 3-point shots across 3 games. So dating back to Marquette, he was 1 for 1 against Marquette, 3 of 3 against Auburn from 3, and then 6 of 6 tonight. Like, obviously, water's going to find its level at some point. But Grant, that's just such a to be able to go in, and I don't think people understand how difficult it is to play 8 minutes one game, 15 here, 20 there, 9 here. And he just seems to come in and always be a weapon. It doesn't even matter sometimes if that shot isn't falling. He always seems to make an impact in a game some way, shape, or form. And it's just one of those games where I said it before the season started. There's going to be a few times this season when, whether it's in the Big Ten landscape or nationally, people are going to scratch their head and say, where did this Jack Benner kid come from? And tonight, I think, was one of those nights.
Yeah, I forgot until you mentioned that he didn't miss against Auburn. I knew he had the good performance, obviously. But, yeah, he's gone 2 games now, 100% from the field. And I feel like he just brings – he's just like Mason Gillis 2 years ago in the way that he can bring that different look where you have 2 post-up guys in your starting lineup with Clough and TKR, and then Jacobson comes in off the bench. But then Benter gives you that stretch 4 option where you can scrap for some rebounds but come out and shoot the ball well. And I think when he's consistently shooting well and the defense has to focus on him, it's just can be so huge for Purdue. And I'm looking forward to seeing that consistency continue. Even if it's not, like you said, water's going to find its level. He's not going to go 6 of 6 every night. Fletcher in the post-game presser talked about how, they want Benter to just consistently shoot the ball. Even if he's 0 for 6, 2 for 6, 6 for 6, that's what Fletch said. Like, keep shooting it because you have the confidence and the ability to make, 6 of 6 on a night, and they need that from him. So, yeah, I thought that was a really interesting dynamic of like Fletcher Lawyer, who's this amazing shooter, is talking about how Jack Benter needs to keep shooting the ball and have that mindset all the time. So 2 really good players.
Yeah, and I thought that's what Fletcher's been told throughout his whole career as well. Is like just keep shooting. And I think what this does, even if Jack is not a guy that is going to score, which he's not going to score 20 points every game, but he's going to have some nights like this. I think what it does more than anything is it puts it on film, right? Like teams are now going to have to, I just lost my word, are going to have
respect.
Respect that. Thank you. Yeah, they're going to have to respect their game plan for his ability to shoot. Like you can't sag off of him. He can knock it down. And that's kind of the same thing with Fletcher. And I know sometimes people want to talk about should Fletcher, he has this cold streak. Should he get out of the starting rotation? It's like, no, they still have to play. They still have to respect him. They still have to, try to contain him. They can't sag off of him because he will go off. And I think that's the same thing when you're able to bring a player like that off the bench. It just makes you so versatile. And I think that's what you're starting to see now and why Purdue's able to score from just about anybody on the court. Like everybody has shown the ability. I think one of the reporters, I think it was Sam King of the Lafayette Journal-Courier, brought it up. Like they've had 6 different players now who have led the team in scoring this season. That's an insane total because we're only through 13 games, right? And so you'd expect it to be Trey, Braden, or Fletcher just about every game. But I think you throw Oscar in there. I think you throw Jack in there. I'm probably blanking. Maybe CJ was the leader for one game.
Or Jakari, one of those 2.
Yeah, one of those 2. So it's just to have those type of weapons. Like I said, even if it's not him getting 20 every night, the idea that he can score at that level makes defenses and, it's going to make opposing coaches kind of pull their hair out a little bit.
Yeah. So, I asked Braden in the presser, I was like, this Kent State team is a really good mid-major. They were in the tournament last year, right? And they're going to be a contender in the MAC again. Could get back this year, but it's the type of game that when you go and you play in that first round of the tournament and you play whatever seed it ends up being, this seems to me like the type of game that really prepares you for that. And so I asked him about that. And they talked about the different levels of basketball it allows them to play. How they're going against some of those like smaller, shiftier guards that maybe you don't see from the elite teams in the country. They've got the size, but Kent State, their players are just a little bit different. And so I don't know. I thought it was really good to see Purdue defend Kent State in that way and to hold them to 60 points. But yeah, what are your thoughts on how this prepares Purdue for the tournament?
No, I think that's a really good question. And I think what Matt Painter has tried to do in the last couple years is schedule these type of games where you're going to play. Yeah, you have to play some mid-majors, but you want to play some good mid-majors. Like Akron is a good mid-major. Kent State, those are two of the best teams in the MAC consistently on a year-to-year basis. Oakland is usually really good. There's a few duds in there. Like Eastern Illinois is not very good. Evansville is not a very good team. But what he likes about those is you get a lot of different looks. And so I think this was just another opportunity to see another different look, because who knows, like last year, High Point gave Purdue some really big fits in the first round, right? And there were thoughts about if Purdue had to play McNeese State in that second round, or if they had to play them in the first round, how would they handle that? So I think the idea that you're going to get a lot of different looks, and I think what I appreciate about some of these teams, and I'd have to go back and look because there's another team, but I can't remember who it was now. But some of these teams, and Kent State's one of them with Gillespie, some of these teams bring in guys that are undersized, like between 6'7" and 6'10", and just rebound the heck out of the basketball. And I like that because it feels like to me, and I know you don't always know who's going to be on the roster when you schedule these games, but it feels like that Matt Painter can look at that and say, this guy's 6'8". He's getting 12 rebounds. There's no reason Oscar Clough can't go out and get 10 or 11. There's no reason Trey Coppin, it's kind of a motivating factor. Like he's saying, hey, look, this guy's giving up 3 or 4 inches every night he plays, and yet he's still scrapping and getting rebounds. There's no reason you guys can't get those same boards. And so I think that more than anything, I love to see these games when these guys come in and they're averaging between 8 and 12 rebounds per game. And they're undersized, because I think that that's a challenge. Now, obviously, Purdue has the size with Jacobson, Clough, and Kaufman-Wren, where they're going to win those battles more times than not. But if they can't be lazy in these games. And that's what I think I like about these matchups more than anything, is the physicality that a lot of these teams play with. And even though they're undersized, it's still a good test for Purdue to, hey, you can't take a night off, or this guy's going to get 18, 19 rebounds and, maybe 10 to 12 second chance points.
Yeah. We've talked about Benter. Fletcher Allaire also had 19 points, almost in like a quiet 19. Like you didn't quite realize he was up there until, afterwards. You're like, oh, he put in 19. TKR with the double-double. And then Braden with his 12 points and 8 assists. Like you had those 3 guys still showed up and played really well. But I think Fletcher's the one that stands out the most because of his 0 for 7 night. I feel like Fletch has had these moments in his career, like every season, where he maybe just goes through a dry spell, has a couple games he doesn't make a 3, and we're all like, oh, what's going on with Fletch? But then he turns the corner and gets back on track, and he does great for the rest of the season. And so, I don't know, does this feel like that's maybe what's happened here, and like he's turning that corner and it's going to be good to go for Big Ten?
Yeah, I think so. And look, tonight even wasn't his best shoot. He was 3 of 10 from long range. I don't know what he was from the floor, what the final number was. I don't have it on my laptop. But, yeah, I mean, he came out guns blazing, and he played really well, especially to get Purdue started. He had 10 points in the first 10 minutes of the game, I think it was. And that's what Purdue needed. They need him to be aggressive. And even if he's not hitting the 3, he can put it on the deck and get to the basket. And I think that's a really good skill that I think a few guys on this team have, but I'd like to see a few more with that same ability. I think Jakari has that ability. He's had trouble finishing, but Fletcher's a guy that he's going to be the same as, kind of going back to that Jack Benner conversation. Like he's going to have nights where he's 3 of 10 or 0 of 7, but he's such a weapon that he's going to have nights when he's 7 of 7 or 4 of 4. He's going to score 16 points on 5 shots. He's been that efficient. throughout this season and throughout his career. So, I think that he's gone through some ups and downs, and that's what happens when you're strictly a shooter. Like Fletch isn't a guy that's going to get second chance opportunities. He's not going to collect rebounds and get to the glass in that way. And so, when you're a shooter and you depend on the 3-point shot, he's still, I don't know what it is, his average is after tonight. It's probably dipped below 40% on the season, but it's still in the high 30s. So he's going to get things going. And I think part of it too is Grant is just, I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but they haven't needed him to be the guy, right? Like they've been able to distribute it to Jakari, to CJ, to Jack. They've been able to go inside with Trey and Oscar and Daniel, and they've been able to get just as much production. So maybe a little bit of that too is even though he's getting high volume, maybe it's not in the same rhythm. And maybe he's still kind of adjusting to that. I think every player on this team has gone through a little bit of an adjustment. But as you mentioned, we've seen Fletch go through this and he comes out on the other side just fine. It's not going to be an all-season thing. It just may be a few-game thing. And I think him getting 19 points, knocking down a couple triples, I think that's a good sign now as they go into Big Ten play and play Wisconsin on Saturday night.
Yeah, so great performance all around for Purdue. Before we sign it off, I want to talk a little bit about the end of Matt Painter's press conference, and not because I want to get into some major controversy, but only because I thought Coach Painter had a really good answer. But they talked a little bit about some of the eligibility rules going on in the NCAA right now, and not just transfers and NIL, but even the addition of some players that have professional experience. And Coach Painter just talked a lot about needing to know rules, needing to know how to abide by them, and then about the importance of focusing on what's going to make the lives of these players better, and not just the elite players, but the players from the top all the way down to the lowest levels of college basketball. And I thought that was a really good thing to bring up in this conversation, because a lot of people don't think about those types of players and those types of circumstances. So I think you were listening to that press conference. I want to hear what your thoughts on his response was.
Yeah, I mean, I think I got about halfway through his response. So if I, mislabel anything, or you can feel free to correct me if I misrepresent anything he said. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of talked about this for a couple years now, where basically it's like, we want to know the rules. Like, just come up with the rules and the guidelines and we'll follow them. And I love how he always throws the caveat of basically it's for the people who are going to follow the rules, because the people who are going to cheat are going to do whatever they want anyway. Right? Like they're not ever going to follow the rules, but give us the rules. And so that way we can abide by them. And I think that it's just what you've heard from not only Matt Painter, but Tom Izzo, John Calipari, and Mark Few, I think even chimed in on this. It's just some level of structure, right? It feels like this is just chaos with guys going into the G League and then getting eligibility, and guys playing so many years in Europe. And I know Purdue has Omer Meyer on their roster, and then getting eligibility and, being able to come in mid-season. I think that's that's crazy to me. Yeah. And, rumors about now a guy who has played in actual NBA games, and there's quote unquote interest in this player, whether or not he'd ever get eligibility. It's just nobody seems to know what's going on in the leadership position. And I thought that in a not so subtle way, Matt Painter took a shot at the NCAA and saying, like, look, if Purdue goes out and plays terrible, it's on me. I have to take accountability for that. And said, the NCAA, there's no accountability. Nobody's taking any accountability for this. And it's just kind of the same message he's had. Like, give us the rules, take some accountability, let's work together and get something accomplished. And it seems like each day, Grant, there's just more and more chaos in this sport. And hopefully things can get figured out, because I do not want to see NBA guys play at the college level. And I don't think a lot of coaches want to see that either.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And like you said, Painter's been talking about the need for rules and structures for a long time, and it hasn't really happened yet. And I think that's definitely going to help a lot. I liked what he had to say too about just the importance of the program and the importance of focusing on the lives of the athletes. I don't know if you've heard this part, but he talked about how just a college scholarship is so valuable to most players, and how 99% of players aren't going to go pro. 95% of the players that do go pro need to get another job after they're done playing. Like, all of those ideas and concepts of these players need to be prepared for life. Tommy Luce was in the building tonight. I don't know if that came through on the broadcast, but he is, I think, some sort of assistant for Kent State. And I thought it was interesting just that happened. And then we have this conversation, and how Tommy Luce is a great example of how the program of Purdue has really benefited his life in a big way. And here's, Coach Painter and I talking about that, how it plays into this idea of NIL and transfer and the rules. And so I think it just represents who Coach Painter is, what this program is all about. And again, it's a huge reason why we love covering this team and rooting for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think he gives Purdue fans something to be proud of, and whether they win or lose, I think people see him and think that he's got a lot of pride and a lot of dignity, and he does things the right way. And I think that that's a phrase we overuse in college sports, is doing things the right way, but I legitimately think he does, and I think that the Purdue program does. One of the things that kind of stood out to me when he was talking about this in a similar light at Big Ten Media Days, and I don't know if you were at the table for this or not, Grant, but he was talking about, like, if an extra $100,000 is going to make or break the decision, and you think that you need to go, but that's, at the grand scheme of things, that's not going to get you $100,000 now, not going to get you very far in life. And I just keep thinking about, I do think a lot of these coaches are doing a disservice to players, where they're just paying them basically to play basketball and don't care about the education element of it. Like, what are they going to do when they're out of this cash and they don't have a degree because they've transferred to 4 different schools and they need to go get a job? And maybe they're smart enough to invest and save and do enough where they can, make a career, or kind of, put together a life savings, or if you will, and have a nice little nest egg there. But that's going to be, again, much like the players in the NBA, that's going to be few and far between. So we'll see what happens. But I think this is going to be probably, I don't know that anything's going to happen right now, but this may be one of the most important off seasons in college basketball. I feel like we say that every off season now. But we'll see. I'd be interested to see, and I don't know how any of the committee stuff works, but if Painter's kind of banging on the door to get on some more of those committees, or how that's going to work. But yeah, I think everybody's with him. Like, just give us some rules and some guidelines, and let's stop the madness.
Yeah, so again, that kind of wraps up a great performance and a great night for Purdue. Final score 101-60 over Kent State. This is really going to propel them into a nice opening to the Big Ten season, where they have to go at Wisconsin on Saturday. So not going to be an easy way to start 2026 at all. But overall, great game. Any final thoughts before we close it out?
Nope, you're 12-1, and you've responded to the Iowa State loss as well as you possibly could have, and now it's time to focus on Big Ten play and see if you can win a third Big Ten title in 4 games. You got 2 months to do it, but you got to do it 1 game at a time. So we'll be interested to see how they come out against a Wisconsin team that has always played Purdue well and tends to be really scrappy.
All right, that wraps up 2025 basketball for Purdue. It was a good year. Lots to look forward to. That'll do it for Boiler Ball post game in the lounge. For Dustin Schutte and Grant Flora, we'll see you next time.